Well, certainly that they are showing some signs of abating, but they're in the very early innings of that process. And anyone who knows about supply chain knows that once you get backed up, there's only one way out of it, and it's one carload, one truckload at a time. So it's not going to be an easy process. It's not going to be a quick process. Is it as bad as it was immediately after the pandemic? No. But is it as good as it's likely to get as either? No, it's not that good either. We don't see real sort of normalization in the supply chain, particularly on the rail side, until you get to the second quarter of 2023. So yes, it's starting, but we're a long way from being back to what a shipper would call a normal supply chain experience. And there are a lot of things between now and the second quarter of next year that can alter that calculus and make it take longer or shorter. Certainly, if you think the economy is going to go into a deeper recession sooner, that certainly would help supply chains normalize. But the analogy I like to use is that's like losing weight by getting food poisoning. You know, you're grateful for the weight loss, but you surely would have wished to do it another way. You wouldn't want that to be the way that you get your supply chain normalized. But assuming that the economy stays in this normalization that it's in, this normalization from the post-COVID era, and we don't see real stabilization until you get to the middle of next year, at least on the rail side. Well, relating to high transport costs, if you're a forest product shipper, you have to think about how you're going to lower those costs and what you value. If you value consistency, if you value knowing when you're going to get your product, that's necessarily going to be a higher cost solution for you. That suggests that maybe you need to make some modal choices or make some facility change to accommodate more trucks and fewer rail cars. It depends on what you're looking for going forward. In terms of the rail side, though, it has its own challenges. If you're a forest product shipper and you don't have your own fleet today, that could give you a challenge. The national boxcar fleet is standardizing. It's going down to a 50-foot car and a 60-foot car for all intents and purposes. And that 60-foot car, particularly the 60-foot high cube, doesn't work well for forest product shippers. Their facilities are older, their dock doors don't line up, they have awnings that would need to be removed, and so if you're a forest product shipper, you're going to need to make capital investment one way or the other. You're either going to need to invest to stay on rails and to make facility improvements to cope with the 60-foot car, or you're going to need to invest in your own fleet of 50-foot cars that will better meet your needs. Now, you will have more empty miles that way, you will have a less efficient fleet overall, but it will serve your needs. It will ensure that you get the car you want because you control that fleet size. You won't be subject to the national boxcar pool. You won't be subject to getting a car you didn't order or not having enough cars, because you will control that car supply in a way that you don't today. But you're going to have to make capital investment to make that happen. So the question, if you're going to be a rail shipper, which will be cheaper overall for you, you're still going to have to make some decisions about how you want to invest capital to stay on rail going forward. Well, the biggest challenge across all modes is labor. It's about getting and retaining enough employees to be able to effectively move a freight network. On the rail side, the number of operating employees, the number of conductors and engineers actually out there moving your freight on a day-to-day basis really hasn't changed since October of 2020. You could almost, if you plotted it on a line graph, take your ruler and draw that line across. That's not normal, and that's also not good. That says that the carriers themselves are just treading water. They're just keeping pace with the number of employees they're losing. And that's not good for a number of reasons. First of all, it's not keeping up with freight demand. Freight demand has grown. Certainly movement to move lumber, to move building products has certainly increased coming out of the pandemic. Carriers don't have the people to be able to do it, to be able to deliver car supply to your facilities effectively, let alone finished goods. And there's no sign that the carriers are actually coming out of that. We saw a little bit of momentum in August, but it's a little bit of momentum. Up until that point, we've seen some carriers add headcount, some carriers reduce headcount. And so if you're a shipper with interchange traffic, you haven't noticed any difference to this point. And that's one of the reasons why we don't expect service improvement until 2023, until the second quarter at least, because you have this lag of getting people in the system, getting qualified employees into the system, and then you're going into a seasonally very difficult period for the carriers to maintain, let alone improve current service levels. The fourth quarter and the first quarter are seasonally the most difficult times to operate because of winter weather disruption. So you have this natural headwind over the next couple of quarters that even if the carriers snap their fingers and suddenly add headcount, you're not going to be able to translate that to better service. And so that labor situation is a big one, particularly when you have to retain these people over the long term and continue to add. The railroads and trucking has the same issue, the same headwind in terms of it's not a sexy job. It's not a job that someone with a college degree wants to go do, wants to go walk a 2-mile train looking for a broken knuckle or a broken air hose at 2 in the morning in a driving rainstorm. They don't want that. And so the industry is going to have to come up with ways to deal with some of its lifestyle challenges so that we're not perennially talking about labor issues as a constraint to how much volume can move through the North American freight system.